Hello again, this is Marxist, and this is my 8 Precepts of Medic. After the relative popularity of the other Precepts videos, I figured maybe I should make one about the class that I actually play. So, here we go on that. If you want a little backstory, what these videos are little lists that I had in my head of things I would tell people that asked me to mentor them. So basically what you're getting here is if you asked me to mentor you, the first time that we ever met up in Mumble or whatever, this is what I would say to you. With a little bit more detail, obviously, because I've got more time for the video, and I figure you'll watch a bit and then come back later. Our first precept, which is the most important precept, is you only have one job. Know who has advantage. So why is the most important thing knowing who does and doesn't have advantage? Well, if you're on a decent team or a team that's not just showing up and wandering around in a server for a bit, everything that you do is predicated on whether or not you have advantage or disadvantage. Literally every decision you make in the game is based on whether or not you have uber advantage or not. If you happen to be wrong, it could cost you a shot at winning a round. You could let an opportunity go by, or it could cost you the round completely because you do something silly and you all die, or you think you're safe and you're not. You can drop every single Uber you get in a game and die in every single fight, or get headshot and stabbed by every single off-classer who has ever lived. But as long as you know whether you have advantage or not, your team's going to play the game properly. And that's going to put them in a pretty good position to win, even without Uber. You should also demand constant building to obtain the optimal charge rate, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Use the in-game clock to determine when they should have Uber. Avoid using your own percentage as a reference because you're going to lose track of things. A really common example is, say you have Uber on your own second. Then you push into mid for some reason and you still don't have to pop. If you're using your own Uber percentage as your reference point, it's going to be impossible to tell whether or not they have Uber. That's why you need to use the in-game clock. It's the easiest method. Also, when you do that, it causes you to constantly check the scoreboard, so you have a really good grasp of the situation there. And you should know, especially when their medic dies and when their medic spawns. And if their medic spawns alone, or if you have reason to believe someone may be waiting on them or spawns with them. Because you can turn those empty periods into huge advantages that the other medic, even if they're being really diligent, isn't going to be able to account for. Precept number 2 is always build, and always build optimally. So now we're going to talk about a few numbers. Not a particular fan of numbers, but they're important to know. So, the optimal Uber build time is 40 seconds. The optimal crits build time is 32 seconds, so slightly faster. If your target has less than 142.5% of their total hit points, so it's even with overheal, you build at the fastest rate of 2.5% for Uber or 3.125% for crits. If they have more than that amount, then your build rate slows down significantly. So here are the hit point numbers you need to shoot for. On Scout, it's 178. The same's true for Spy, NG, and Sniper. Soldier, it's 285. Demo Man, 249. Also true of the Pyro. And Heavy, about 427. I personally aim to be about 10 hit points under that number when building. So I normally tell my pockets to try to stay under 275, or new medics to tell their pockets to stay under 275. That just makes things easier and reduces the risk that they're going to go over 285 and slow the whole show down. And what I mean by always be building is, unless you're actively fighting, you should be building Uber or crits as fast as you possibly can, because there's no reason not to. You're not doing anything productive if you aren't. Precept number 3 is always be on the lookout for crit heals. What are crit heals and how do they work? Normally, when you have your beam on somebody, they heal at 24 health per second. Valve decided that that wasn't quite fast enough for every situation, and that a lot of players preferred to die, respawn, and come back as opposed to wait on being healed. So to provide an incentive to retreat, your healing rate ramps up significantly if someone hasn't taken damage in a while. Here's how it ramps up. After 10 seconds, you're still healing at the normal rate. You start to ramp up after that. At just 2.5 seconds later, you're doubled. You're healing at double the normal rate. After 15 seconds, you're healing at basically 3 times the normal rate at 72 health per second, which is very, very fast. So, if you're looking around for crit heals and encouraging nicely your team to manage themselves and their own crit heals, you'll put out a lot more healing per second. There's no real stat for that, so you can't check yourself to see if you're doing a good job at that. But ideally, that's what you want to do. You want to be putting out a lot of heals per second. And the easiest way to do that is to manage crit heals. I see a lot of players, they'll be standing in a group of, say, 3 people, and all of them are hurt. And they'll just keep healing one guy. If nobody really knows how long it's been since they were last healed, or they don't understand how crit heals work, you should tap on the other guys. Just test them out. Try their flavor. See what it's like. Because you may get lucky and one of them may have crit heals. And now all of a sudden, instead of healing your pocket for 48 health over 2 seconds, you've got some guy over 100 health in 2 seconds. Just because you tried out the crit heals. So always be on the lookout for that, and also be on the lookout for abusing crit heals. Encourage your team not to take damage when they don't have to, especially prior to really big pushes. Precept number 4 is always cover your tracks. How to use voice binds to hide automatic utterances. So whenever you get Uber or whenever you pop, almost always the medic will say something in the game, and that's involuntary. You have no control over that. So either in your console or in your medic config file in TF2 using Notepad or WordPad, set yourself up with a few keys you can hit when he would normally say those things, such as I'm charged every time you get Uber, so that it covers the sound up. And if you're really crafty, fakes the I'm charged thing. Experiment with different choices from the voice menu. See what you like. See what's quiet to you. And so on and so forth. It's sort of an individual flavor choice. Don't be lazy and use medic for all your stuff. Because that's way louder than what the medic would normally say. And it's such a lazy common tactic that if you call for medic anywhere near when they think you might have Uber, they'll be absolutely certain you've got Uber in most cases. So it's really not worth it to try. You could maybe try and be crafty and use it as a fake call, but generally they're going to know your percentage anyways. It's not so much about concealing your true percentage, unless it's really close and you fake so as to dissuade them from pushing. It's mainly about concealing your position before you push. So, and then I post some example binds here that are just basically stolen straight out of my config with the numbers changed to be a little more interesting than what I actually use. And I edited some of the swearing out of the text binds. But that's an example of what you could throw in the console or in your medic config file and get that going for you. Again, it's not the most important topic, but it's something you can do just to give yourself a little something extra to do and conceal your position. And also the text binds are really nice because it's an automatic way of telling your team when you've popped or whether you've got Uber, and so on and so forth, non-verbally. Precept number 5 is always have defensive countermeasures. How to avoid damage sometimes. Whenever you're fighting a demo, spread out. Don't stand in a big group, because the demo man's damage passes through bodies. So if a friend of yours takes a pipe, you may take the damage from it as well if you're close enough to them. And that's a disaster for you because you don't have that much health to begin with. And no one's going to heal you. When you're fighting scouts, hide inside the bodies of your teammates. Run towards your teammates and not away from them. The biggest mistake that a lot of new medics make in this regard is that, for example, they'll have their pocket soldier in front of them, and a scout who is in front of the pocket will start running at them to kill them, the medic that is, and they will run away from the scout. That makes it incredibly difficult for your pocket soldier or whoever was in front of you to kill that scout, because they have to chase the scout now. And trust me, there isn't a medic alive who can outrun a scout. It's simply not possible. You will get killed by him. So run into the bodies of your teammates. And even if he gets between you and your heal buddy, or the rest of your team, run towards them. Do not run away. The scout will catch you and kill you before they can save you. Whenever you're fighting a soldier, surfing is an option by just pressing jump and crouch and hoping they didn't miss, or that they don't headshot you and make you crater and die. Your best bet is to try to line yourself up with your heal buddy, so they have to pick between shooting them and you. If they decide to shoot you, then just start mashing your forward and backwards keys, so they have to try to figure out where it is exactly that you're gonna be. And that's generally the easiest way to avoid being attacked by a soldier. If it's a bombing soldier, try and run underneath him, because they can't aim all the way down and then come back around. You can't aim in 360 degrees vertically, so you can only look down so far, basically. And if you run underneath them, they won't be able to track you at a certain point, and then that's it. You're not going to get bombed. Precept number 6. Dying at mid doesn't have to be a big deal. How to die at mid and not lose, or lose mid and not die. 1. If you die at mid, you need to make sure that the entire world knows that it is now its job to kill the other team's medic. Their medic has to die, or you're going to lose the round, unless the other team makes a terrible mistake. And in general, it's not a good idea to bank on the other guy making a mistake. So just don't do it and kill them. If your demo dies first at mid, it's over for you. Leave. Your team might still win. Things may still go okay. But as far as you're concerned, that's it. If your demo is the first death at mid, you're done. Just turn right on around and leave. If you give up the first 2 deaths at mid, leave. It's over for you. Your team may still win, but that's not a risk that you're willing to take. Or at least I'm not, and you shouldn't be. If both your scouts die and they have a player advantage of any type, I'm done. That's my mid. I'm outie boom bowdy. And generally, whoever obtains 3 frags at mid will win. So whoever gets the 3rd frag in their favor is probably gonna win. So if it's like 4 versus 4, and then that 3rd frag comes down, you need to think about leaving. That's situation 5. That's when you ought to think about it. It's up to you as to how risky you would like to be in that situation. And in that way, you could lose mid and not die, and die and at mid and not lose. As long as their medic dies, you're fine if you die. And if you lose mid and you get out early enough, everything's okay. You can hold second, you could hold yard and granary. Everything will still be okay. Precept number 7 is it's okay to drop it sometimes. So, when is it okay to just get rid of the idea of pop it, don't drop it? Well, if your team is already clearly want to fight, and your dropping in death will not influence the outcome in any way, shape, or form, it may be worth it to risk it. We're talking about a situation where perhaps you start to push with an Uber and you don't ever have to pop it and you get 4 kills. If one of those guys comes out of the woodwork and randomly starts shooting at you and manages to kill you, and their medic's already dead, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be a big deal if you die. And you're going to win the round if you don't. So that's kind of a good payoff to take that risk. If you're being attacked by a single target, and your death will not cause a round loss, i.e. you're not holding last, and their medic, especially if their medic is already dead or on their last, i.e. not moving out anytime soon, then that's a perfect time to drop an Uber too. It's all about risk versus reward and what you feel comfortable with taking responsibility for. Because everyone will blame you if you lose the round and you drop the Uber. Or you may want to get a little bit of that credit if you held an Uber to 10 HP and didn't die. And then you easily win the round with the Uber that comes after that. Now, I should carefully note that this does not give you permission to hold every Uber forever. The general rule of thumb that I like to use is if I'm under 100 health, it's probably a pretty good time to pop. And if the pocket is under 250 health, it's generally a good idea to pop if there's more than one thing shooting at him. And there generally will be if he's under 250. Precept number 8 is if you're gonna die, hurry up and die. If you know you have no chance of escaping whatsoever, hurry up and die. But try to do it gloriously if you can. You may as well try for those leet needle or crossbow kills or uber saw kills. Any of those will work. And that's an appraisal that you have to make. It's risk versus reward. In some cases, you may very well be able to escape. So my rule of thumb is if I think there's any way in the world that I'll possibly get out, then I'm going to make the attempt to escape. If I know that I can't, or the guy that's going to kill me is like right on top of me, and there's no spawns coming anytime soon, then it's time to pull out the saw, the needle, or the crossbows and go down gloriously, but quickly also. If you can't preserve your honor, you should kill yourself with a script. So that would be used in situations where something goes wrong with a push and you end up trapped behind the enemy team and you pull your needles out to die gloriously and they're not there. That's when you would use your kill bind and just hurry up and die. I like to have a little fun with it, so if I know I'm going to die, I'm going to try and 1v1 a scout or a soldier or their whole team first. But the most efficient thing for you to do would probably be to just hit your kill bind as soon as possible. And the reason that this exists is if your team is dead in a significant way, a lot of people are dead or you're the last one up, the longer you take to die, the more delayed your spawn will be. And even if their medic is already dead, they're going to have advantage because you're going to die. He'll spawn before you respawn. They have advantage now. If their medic's still alive, then you're definitely going to have disadvantage. So you should just hurry up and get it over with so you can get to charging again soon. And that's my 8 precepts of medic. And also basically what I would have told you in the event that you ever asked to be mentored by me at medic. That's essentially my spiel that I would have given you. So I know the whole Uber droppy thing is going to be a little controversial, but that's my take on it. The community of Medic players is kind of divided there between people who, oh, it's always better to pop it, and I like to be risky and let's go win the round if I don't die right now. So I tend to fall into that second camp, obviously. So hopefully you found this to be enjoyable and informative. And until next time, I think we'll do pockets, I guess.